Okay, how many of you actually get the day off tomorrow, given you're working in Malta? Okay, yeah. Some of us, unfortunately, don't. I have to catch up with the team in Budapest. So, final speaker. Two important things that I'm obliged to say. All final speakers need to draw attention to the fact that they're the final speaker, and they need to promise that they'll keep it short. Given a couple of people at the back have an IV connected, that's probably prudent. So, Sebastian, I work at Prezi in Budapest, but I collaborate a lot with our San Francisco teams. You can find me online, Twitter, on Seb Cachia, or most other online sites. And I'm going to be talking a bit about the experience we've had over the past couple of years. Now, I'm actually not going to be talking about marketing per se, not traditional marketing, not growth hacking. How many people have a background in marketing here? Raise your hands. Okay, down. How many people have a background in product, in engineering, product management, UX design? Okay, much less people. Awesome. So, part of the problem is that as companies grow, as Prezi has done, these departments start to become separate. So in a startup, you're probably sitting next to the person doing marketing. And as the company starts to grow, they start to be seen as different disciplines. And one of the things we've learned is that it's critical for them to be one and the same. So a couple of the concepts which I'll talk through today, the people of you with a background in marketing should find it super familiar. It's really critical that these concepts are applied to product. Marketing should be dealt with in a similar way to UX. It should be there from the very beginning and not slapped on at the end like lipstick on a pig. So, we recently launched Prezi Business. This is our push into the enterprise market. And it's really symbolic. Some of the stuff we've gone through there are really really indicative of the experience that we've been having. So, looking at Prezi's growth over the past couple of years, we actually announced hitting 75 million users a couple of weeks ago. So really far from being a small startup, risk greatly reduces at that stage. And we're really excited by this. Looking at the numbers, we saw some of the stuff that we expected. Lots of growth in education, which is really one of the sectors we had a lot of initial success in. But when we really dug in, we saw that actually the fastest growing segment was the business space. Overall, almost twice as quickly growing and as well activated as our other segments were. So we thought, great. Let's build a product especially for these guys. Let's tailor an experience for them, because we knew this would be critical for our continued growth. And when trying to understand this market, we saw a couple of traits. People were pragmatic in this market. It's no longer about using a cool new tool. They had a specific benefit which they wanted to accomplish. People were reference-driven. They didn't want to be using, again, something cool and new for the sake of being a trendsetter. They wanted to use something that their colleagues were using, something that industry leaders were already using. And they had high expectations. It wasn't about using a tool which was part of multiple other tools, and they had to use workarounds and stuff like that. They wouldn't go to a DIY store and buy hammer, nails, and some planks of wood. They'd expect to go home, find the sun deck fully set up, with maybe a deck chair and a cocktail ready to drink there. So high expectations from them. So we said, okay, we're focused on the business market. What does that really mean? And we quickly realized presentations are one of the de facto languages of business. There's no, okay, build a business presentation tool. It just means so many different things to so many different people. We needed to establish a beachhead within businesses. So we looked at some of the businesses which had already started to adopt Prezi. And we saw that sales organizations were a really awesome beachhead. We had seen some of the strongest adoption within sales organizations. They had really high-stakes presentations, so it was a context where people were more than willing to try out a new tool if it gave them an edge. There was a clear concept of value there. You're closing the deal or you're not, so we could have a much more direct conversation about the value we're able to provide. And it's a really collaborative department. They're working with other departments in an organization, but they're also pitching to other organizations. So by setting sales and marketing as a beachhead, we'd know that we'd be able to use this to drive growth down the line. Now, as I said, it's quite clear a couple of people have an IV connected, and it's getting tough to pay attention at the end of the day. If you take one thing away and nod off for the remaining minutes of my talk, it's this. As a company grows, one of your most important tools that's going to be really, really critical is the ability to gain context, to distribute that internally, and to set a product roadmap, a product strategy which is based on that context. And it might sound obvious. As Patrick's data has shown in his talk, it's quite clearly that people lose touch with the market, lose that context. So if you're taking one thing away, gain context, share that context internally, and build your strategy on that context. So making it concrete, I'm going to be talking about 3 different areas where we've done this. One area being immersion, the next being this concept of a whole product, and finally, positioning. Diving in. A quote I like to use internally, markets don't use products, people use products. And what this means is as follows. We decided to build a product for salespeople. I'm a product manager with a technical background. Most of the people in the product organization were about as far away from sales as it gets. So we obviously started by understanding the market. We read a couple of the cool new books, which salespeople are reading. We checked up on blogs, attended webinars, and started to use all the cool phrases. But we didn't stop here. As soon as we felt we could have a conversation with a salesperson, we went out and did just that. We reached out to salespeople who were already using our product. We reached out to random people over LinkedIn who had the kind of profile we were looking at. And we had dozens and dozens of conversations in the first couple of weeks alone. And we actually kept this trajectory through the entire product development process. So we've got 8 teams working directly on product. Each one of those teams has 1 to 2 calls with random people in our target audience each week. So we talked to lots of them. We talked about how they worked, what tools they used, what their process was like. And as we started to notice a trend, we started calling up other salespeople. And we repeated the story back to them. And we said, does this resonate with what your job is like, what your experience is like? And they said, yes. How do you know that? Awesome. We've only had a couple of calls about this. And as we did this work, a couple of trends started to emerge. As I said, Prezi initially focused on very different use cases. We focused on small businesses, a single user. We focused on education. And in this context, we had a very different user persona. They typically created, they presented, and they were making the purchasing decisions, one person. And we started to see that there was much more subtlety between the different personas. We understood the differences between creators and presenters. We got a deeper understanding of who was making the buying decisions. Very often, they'd never use the tool. And we also started to know that given we're selling to people who are selling, it was important to understand our customers' customers, because it's those needs that we're ultimately trying to meet. And again, a popular yet frequently ignored or misused tool is then personas. People like to use these as a way of having a design deliverable, throwing them into a requirements document, and forgetting about them. But actually, we aligned the entire organization around these. They're stuck on every wall. Each team gets these printed out to have conversations about. Marketing uses these to understand who they're targeting, who they're talking to. We even play games every so often where we simulate being a team of these people. Everyone gets a fake name, and we go through scenarios which we've learned about to test out the product. So we take personas really seriously, and we use them day to day to make sure we're remaining connected with the market. And finally, something, as we shifted to B2B, there's this concept of a charter customer group, which is something we applied to much success. From the earliest days of this project, we reached out to a couple of our most successful customers. We also reached out, as we were having those early calls, and we reached out to people who weren't yet customers. Some of them got really excited about the ideas we talked to them about. And we got them engaged too. And what we basically did is we asked these people, we're on 2-week sprints, how would you feel about every 2 weeks having a conversation? We'll ask about how you're doing at work, we'll tell you about what we're doing, and we'll give you an early version of the product every 2 weeks. And the more you can bash this product, the more you can tell us about what's wrong and what's right, the better. So every 2 weeks, we talked to a couple of people. It took a lot of time, but it was well worth it. And the end result of this is not only that we built a product which remained connected with the marketplace, but when it actually came time to launch, we had people who'd already been using the product for a couple of months. People like a fairly high-up consultant who works with Salesforce, obviously great if you're targeting sales and marketing professionals, good partner to have. And we've got the reference. So as I mentioned, it's really important for B2B products to be referenceable as well. Cool, so that's immersion. Almost done, just 2 more buckets to go. Hold on. So, the concept of the whole product. As I mentioned, people are pragmatic and they have high expectations. And the need is really that I've got something I need solved. So, you're selling people on a better version of their life, enabled by your product. Many marketing organizations understand this well. You see ads where the product barely features, but there's this awesome image of someone really cool accomplishing amazing stuff. Unfortunately, that never really moves back into product organizations. You build a product, you've got this cool technology which you want to apply, and then you just kind of stick the awesome story on at the end. And a way that we remember this is this on userboard.com, on their blog, I actually came across this. Intercom on their blog retweeted it, and yeah, it kind of went viral for a while in the product management community. There is such a thing. And it's a really good way to illustrate how you need to think about stuff. We all do a good job about thinking what the customer is. We kind of understand what the product is, but what we're actually selling is Super Mario that throws fire. You're not selling the psychedelic flower. And by understanding that, you can make a lot of better choices about what you're going to build. If you understand that's the goal in mind, maybe you shouldn't be getting people to eat strange flowers, but you could build a flamethrower. So, one of the things we did at this stage was we had been talking to a lot of salespeople, and we went through something called a journey map. Slightly cut off here. So we went through something called the journey map. So we actually traditionally always focused on, we're Prezi, we're a presentation tool, this is our bit. But we started to ignore that. We talked to them about their entire job. Stuff like how they understand their customers, so how salespeople start to scout around, find leads, how they start to cultivate that relationship, stuff they'd never really do with us. How then, once they've picked a customer, how they start to frame the story, how they're going to get into the business, then how they start to plan the pitch. So this is where Prezi traditionally was most involved in, having the actual pitch, the actual presentation, the game day, and finally following up with that client and trying to close the deal. And we did this not because we felt the need to build something for all of this, but because that context was critical in understanding the mindset people have when coming in, what their goals are, who we can partner with in accomplishing these problems and solving these problems. And this is something which, again, sits everywhere in the building, which we pull into conversations, which keeps us grounded in what we're actually trying to do. And we get multiple versions of this. And this is an example of a drill down of the 6 steps which I showed you, focusing on a couple of those steps. It takes up a full wall. I sit right next to that, actually. And every time we're having discussions about product, about what to build, and what we're going to be sharing with marketing, we stand around this wall and have discussions about it, and that keeps us grounded. And this is a screenshot of a mega Excel sheet which includes all of that. So there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of detail which can easily go forgotten if you just throw it into documents like this, make it real, and use it on an everyday basis. 2 out of 3, almost done. It's the final stretch. This is about the point where you'd hit the wall if you were running. So, finally, positioning. Again, it's a concept which to all marketers will be fairly familiar. But what does this have to do with building the product? Isn't this more about how you're going to be communicating about it at the end? So, as we went through understanding Prezi Business as a product, we came up with this value proposition. So we saw that people wanted to have conversations. Sales presentations were no longer about the sales guy coming in, talking for half an hour and throwing a sheet with pricing information onto the table. Due to the reduction in information asymmetry, people were well informed already, and it was more about having a trusted advisor, someone to talk to about the product decision. So this was really important for us. Prezi as a medium is known for being high impact. It's something people notice right away. We wanted to keep that persuasive nature in it. And we understood that it was about fitting into the larger workflow. So we had these 3 key parts to the value proposition. And what we started to see is that we created lots of great context for the organization, lots of great information. And we could have done one of 2 things. We could have forgotten about it, which would have kind of sucked. We could have thrown it all into people's face every single time and had them be intimidated by it. We could have also condensed it into a requirements document and know everyone would have forgotten about the context. But what we actually chose to do is give people the context through all the other stuff I've been talking about. But in the same way that you'd sell to a customer by trying to have a simple value proposition and elevator pitch of type, we had our own internal elevator pitch, which was this. It's less refined, it wasn't meant for external use, but in a day-to-day conversation when talking about product functionality, we could build with the end in mind, with what marketing are actually going to be selling in mind. And this kind of went on to impact a couple of things. And I'll just end by showing a couple of screenshots and mentioning a couple of specifics. So if you look at the old product, which any of you can try out for free online, it's very much creator focused. So the assumption is you're going in, your funnel is, I'm going to sit down, I'll create something for a period of time, and then I'll go off and present it. And this was then reflected in our metrics, in our pricing, and all that kind of stuff. Moving on to the product we actually released, we've made a couple of changes in addition to the color of the default theme. We started out by encouraging certain structures which we know made it easier to have a conversation. So we've got these bubble structures. You can zoom in, zoom out, move between stuff, so you're not awkwardly stuck clicking back 20 times to get back to something you want to mention. We've also focused a lot on the collaborative aspects. So I said it's about the workflow. We added chat functionality. We added the ability to present remotely, given we understood workflows. And we understood that given it's about having a conversation and getting insights, we added analytics functionality. So already it's a much more focused experience. And moving on then, this let us continue this conversation with our customers from a marketing perspective. So if you look at the product page, you immediately see the first line is just talking. The contrast is probably crap. But further down, you can see the larger line. It's let your audience help guide the conversation. This was really at the center of what we've been talking about with the product. And it gets there right away onto the first page. And moving on, similarly, we knew exactly what functionality to emphasize on the product page, stuff that aligns with that value proposition of understanding the workflow, being conversational, and more importantly, it extends beyond just product functionality, but also into the services we choose to offer. So it's no longer just about building a product, it's about making you successful, the fire-throwing Super Mario. So we know that where the product might not get all the way there, where it falls short, we're there to help you out with support, with training, and with different creative services. So, the takeaways. Marketing and product in a growing company move apart. Bring them back together and make sure that they're influencing each other from the earliest stages. Immerse yourselves in the market. Make sure that that context is there to drive you all the way. Focus on solving an entire problem, the entire need that your customers have, and use positioning to your advantage, not only externally, but also internally, to make sure everyone's clear on the vision. I won't keep you from the beach any longer, although, yeah, over to the panel. Thank you.